So for today's class, you're going to need the usual stuff, a pair of matching yoga blocks, a nice clear open area with more than one yoga mat would be recommended, a pillow or padding of some sort. It could be a folded beach towel or a blanket or a couch cushion. And then if you have one of these, absolutely optional, not required, but these Pilates plastic elastic bands will come in handy when I'm describing muscular movement we'll be doing later on. Not required, but if you have one of these, go ahead and dig it out. We haven't met before. My name's Brandy. Welcome to Sunday morning yoga. We're going to start standing up. So just settle in with your feet about a comfortable hip width apart, your knees unlocked, your toes spread. Palms turned forward for a great big shoulder shrug. Inhaling up and exhale back and down. Repeat. Great big shoulder shrugs. Inhaling all the way up. Exhale back and down. And repeat a few more times. Great big shoulder shrugs. Great big yawns. Inhaling up. Exhaling down. Oh, good. Inhaling up. And exhaling down. Now your challenge is to keep those shoulders down on your back as you make soft fists. Keep your knees unlocked. Again, unstick your feet. Let your feet be a comfortable hip width apart and unstick your heels. Let your heels lift up as you begin to pivot, rotate, and twist. Those soft fists will start to strike your chest and your upper back. So if you are wearing a bra today, you're striking just about that bra band level on the back side of your body, and you're striking your chest like you're a gorilla beating your chest on the front. And as you do this, again, you're pivoting, unstick your heels so that you don't torque your knees, and just start loosening up some of the phlegm in your chest, starting to loosen up the spine. Nice torso twists. This is a Qigong exercise that you would do to wake up first thing in the morning. Just about that bra band on your back body. That's where your kidneys are located. And sitting right on top of those kidneys are your adrenal glands. And so the theory, the idea here is that you're helping to juice those adrenal glands, get some adrenaline flowing in your body. I don't know if this actually works or not, but the idea is that it wakes you up. And you're also striking your chest to loosen up the phlegm and congestion so that you can breathe better. So nice deep breaths here, waking yourself up. The Qigong is kind of the prescriptive version of Tai Chi. What would you do to warm up for Tai Chi? If you had particular ailments, diseases, discomforts in your body, you wanted to warm up a bit before your Tai Chi practice, you would do some prescribed Qigong. So this might be the Qigong you would do if you had chest congestion. Or if you were sleepy first thing in the morning. Keep going. And then settle in. Come to center. Feet a comfortable hip width apart. Palms forward for that great big shoulder shrug up. Back and down. Close your eyes. Turn your attention inward. And breathe. Again, those shoulders are drifting down away from your ears. You're finding your breath, letting it come in and out through your nose. Finding your weight centered forward and backward on your feet. And also side to side on your feet. Just shifting your weight around a little bit, finding that midpoint. And slowly let your eyes open. All right, you're going to take this right hand, draw it behind your back, use your left hand to pull it across as far to the left as it will go, and then hold it in place, palm to palm, shoulders down away from your ears, and your head falls over towards your hands. As you're doing this, your belly is pulled in, Your shoulders are down away from your ears. Chin might even be slightly tucked. Knees are unlocked. Feeling that lovely stretch on your neck. And then look down into that left armpit. Chin on your chest, looking down into that left armpit. As you interlace, clasp your hands together. Skid your thumbs down your tailbone. Squeeze your shoulder blades together. Let your chin roll to the middle of your chest, pulling those elbows away from your back any amount at all. Still staying upright with this one and breathing. Knees unlocked, toes relaxed, feet a comfortable hip width apart. And then release. We'll do the other side. You're going to take that left arm behind your back, pull it all the way across, palm to palm, hold it in place. Shoulders down away from your ears as your head falls over towards your hands. Belly pulls in, knees unlocked, breathing. And then turn to look down into that right armpit. It just gets the side of your neck slightly different. Feeling of stretch there on the side of your neck as you look down into that armpit. And then clasping your hands together, skid your thumbs down your tailbone, squeeze your shoulder blades together, and put your head on straight. You have the option to stay upright, pulling those elbows away from your back, or you can bend your knees. Notice I've taken my feet wider apart. Bend your knees and hinge over. Gravity will help pull those shoulders or elbows further away from your body. Head hangs heavy. Belly resting on, or better yet, between your thighs. So we're doing this for the shoulders, not so much the legs. Belly resting on or between your thighs. And you're breathing. Hands come to your hips and slowly come all the way on up to standing. Palms forward for that shoulder shrug up. Back and down. Inhale, take your arms up and overhead. And as you exhale, bring your arms level with your shoulders. Now turn your palms up. Hitchhike your thumbs backwards. So you're wanting maximum rotation in the arms. Thumbs rolling back. So the inner skin, the part with no tan, is turned up skyward. Bending your elbows, make field goal arms. Thumbs continue to pull back, elbows tip forward. Feel those shoulder blades slide down your back. And as you do this, resist the temptation to throw your chest forward. Keep those front ribs ticked in, your knees unlocked, your belly pulled in too. Trying to stay upright here. Elbows forward, thumbs back. Maximum rotation in those upper arms. And then look down into your right armpit. You can go ahead, drop that right hand. Chin tucked into that right armpit as you pull that left shoulder blade down your back. Knees unlocked, toes spread. So we're going for another neck stretch. Slightly different angle here, perhaps a little bit more intense. You have the option of adding even more intensity by taking that right hand up and over to the base of your skull, tucking that chin deeply into the armpit. For maximum upper trapezius, upper back, upper neck stretch here, pull down hard on that left shoulder blade. And release. Big yawn, big shoulder shrug. Inhale up, back and down. Inhale, take your arms up and overhead. And once again, bring those arms level with your shoulders. Rotate those upper arms to hitchhike your thumbs back. Bend at the elbows. Elbows forward, thumbs back, shoulder blades down. Heads on level and straight. Until you turn your head to the left, look down into that left armpit and drop the left arm. Again, for more stretch here, you're going to pull down hard on that right shoulder blade. Pull down hard on that right elbow. Knees unlocked, toes are relaxed. Breathing. And if you need even more stretch, take that left hand up and over to the base of your skull, tucking your chin deeply into that armpit. Again, this is not about shoving your head into your armpit. It's about pulling that right shoulder blade, that right elbow down. And release. Palms forward, great big shoulder shrug, great big yawn. Inhale up. Exhale back and down. Good. Inhale, take both arms up. And as you exhale, release. All right, we're breathing pretty good this morning. Let's find those bricks. Set those 2 bricks up side by side. Hopefully they're matching, and stand on them. And when you stand on these bricks, if they're matching, your hips are level. Knees are unlocked, palms forward for that shoulder shrug up, back and down. Hands on your hips, shoulders down, lift your chest up. And as you exhale, find those front ribs. And as you exhale, tuck those front ribs in. Inhale, lift your chest up. Pulling your ribs out of your hips, getting longer through your torso, pushing down on your hips as you lift your ribs up. And then as you exhale, like you just got gut punched, press your breath out, drop your ribs. Again, inhale, lift your ribs up. And as you exhale, drop those ribs in. So hopefully your hips are level because I distracted you a bit from them. You found that natural level with your hips. Now I'm going to ask you to kick out one of those blocks and put your foot down on the ground. Now your hips are no longer level. Let's do that same breathing thing. Knees are unlocked for this. As you inhale, lift your ribs up. And as you exhale, drop them. 2 more just like that. Big inhale, lift those ribs out of your hips. And as you exhale, drop your ribs. 1 more time. Big inhale, lift those ribs up. And exhale. Now, would you agree that those ribs are independent of your hips? They're 2 separate entities. So now your challenge is to keep your ribs from moving and lift just this. This would be your left hip up. So ribs stay neutral as you lift your left hip up into socket and then drop it. Ribs stay neutral if you can. Lift that hip up and drop it. How about 2 more on this side? Lift hip up and drop it. And 1 more time, lift hip up and drop it. All right, maybe that worked, maybe not. Well, we get a second shot. We're going to try it on the other side. So, other foot on the block, other foot on the ground. I've got these 2 different stripes. Hopefully they're giving you a little feedback here, what's going on with my ribs and my hips. And put hands on hips and keep the hips from going anywhere as I move just the ribs. Hopefully you're joining me. With a big inhale, lift those ribs up. And then as you exhale, drop the ribs. 3 more just like that. And 1 more. Big rib lift. And drop. All right. Ribs go nowhere. Lifting up a hip. Lift the hip and drop it. Lift the hip and drop it. 2 more on this side. Lift the hip up and drop it. 1 more time. Hip up and drop it. So moving the hips, we're using hip muscles, not rib muscles. Let's see if we can do this walking around a little bit. Don't step on your chicken. So keep the ribs neutral. You're not leaning side to side. Ribs are staying neutral. And you're going to lift up 1 hip, move it forward, drop it down. It looks a little weird. It's like I'm lifting a hip up, and then as I step onto the foot, I'm dropping that hip down. Lift the other hip up. As I step onto the foot, I drop the hip down. It's like I'm a penguin or something. So when the foot hits the floor, the hip drops down. It's a weird action. It's going to feel kind of stiff-legged, but you want to keep your knees unlocked as you do this. Just take a little penguin walk forward and backward. Starting to use those obliques, ab muscles to lift those hips up. Ideally, the ribs are going nowhere. Ribs are staying neutral as you penguin walk forward and backward. Little steps, don't step on your chicken's feet. Foot hits, hip drops. Foot hits, hip drops. Sometimes it helps to add in some hand movements. Like I'm stepping on grapes or something. Stomping grapes, forward and backward. A couple more times, starting to feel those hip muscles and ab muscles work. We're going to be using this action because what you're actually doing to get that hip up so that you can drop it down is using those abs. We're going to use those abs in this movement of the leg in the hip joint to really turn on our abs as we now come down to the floor. So come join me lying down. If you have one of these stretchy things, go ahead, pull it out, get ready to play with it. We're going to lie down, put a pillow underneath your head if you need one. Knees bent, feet flat. Bring one knee at a time, both knees into your chest, and walk your hips away from your shoulders. Rock your hips side to side. Let those hips walk away from your shoulders. Feel that back waistband. Feel your hips on the ground as you come to neutral. Now, if you have one of these stretchy bands, you take it flat across the bottom of both feet. Now, a regular yoga belt will do, or a beach towel or bathrobe tie, something across the bottoms of your feet, nice and flat. Now, this stretchy band just helps pull the legs into your pelvis for you, just the weight of your arms. So heavy arms hanging from your belt, feeling those legs plug into your pelvis, feeling that lower back spread out across the floor, feeling that back waistband broad and flat. Now go ahead, slip one foot out. Doesn't matter which. One foot is in, one foot is out. See this, one foot in, one foot out. Your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to find those front ribs. Inhale, big rib cage breath. And as you exhale, drop those front ribs. 3 more just like that. Big inhale into your ribs. And as you exhale, drop those front ribs. 2 more just like that. Inhale. Exhale. Sometimes it helps to make a noise, like you're hawking up a hairball. Inhale. And exhale. Almost like you're clearing your throat, helping to engage those upper abs even more. So your challenge now is to keep those front ribs tucked in, stapled to the floor. Feel that heaviness on the bottom of one foot and imagine it on the bottom of the other. And with a good inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, keep your legs heavy on the floor. Keep whichever leg you're letting lower down towards the floor plugged into your pelvis. Pull it in using your abs. You're lower down about halfway. Keep breathing. That heavy, broad, flat waistband is now changed. Those front ribs are tucked in, so those back ribs are on the floor. Starting to feel your abs work. Now, whichever leg you're lowering down, also squeeze it in towards midline to help you engage that pelvic floor. And then bring it back up. Leave the band or belt where it is. We're going to switch sides. As you exhale, prepare, abs are strong. Let that leg lower down. Feel it plugged into your pelvis, sucked into socket. Also squeezing in towards midline. Front ribs are tucked in. And you keep your shoulders and neck and jaw relaxed. If you're feeling your shoulders lifting away from the ground or the back of your neck is arching away from the ground, you probably need a pillow or block underneath your head. And then bring this back up. Get to slip one foot in, slip one foot out. We're switching sides. Again, it doesn't matter which leg. Let's do the other one. Inhale. And as you exhale, tuck those front ribs in. 2 more, just like that. Big inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. If you're ticklish, you know this move. Inhale. And guard against being tickled. Keeping those abs pulled in, keeping your legs pulled into socket. Lower the leg that doesn't have the belt on it down about halfway. And keep pulling it into socket. Yes, you have to work a little harder to keep it pulled into socket when you don't have the belt around the bottom of the foot. But that's okay, you can do it. And then bring it back up. Other leg, the one with the belt now. Exhale, prepare. The lowers down about halfway. And really feel it pulling into socket. That leg is short. It's straight, but it's short. Plugged in. Abs are engaged. And bring it back up. And release. Just to point out the obvious, maybe if it wasn't so obvious to you, what we just did standing up with our feet on the bricks, and we got rid of one of the bricks, and we lifted the hip up and down, and then we did our little penguin walk. Same thing you just did here. You had a leg being pulled into socket with that band, and you had another leg just kind of falling out of socket that you had to hold into place. And ideally, ultimately, your back waistband did not shift around on the floor. And ideally, ultimately, your front ribs were able to stay tucked in the entire time. All right. pick a side, any side, you're going to roll on over, get your blocks. I'm going to take it to the next level. We're still doing some abs in case you haven't noticed, but I like these abs because they don't hurt my neck. You're going to put these 2 blocks like a freight train, choo-choo train, so that your heels can go on. Now, this is where if you have the really fat blocks, they're actually better. So if you have these thin, like 2 inchers, you might want to turn them to the 6-inch tall height. You do want a bed of height underneath those ankles, 4 to 6 inches underneath your heels. And that's where the bricks are going, underneath your heels. So it might take a little bit of finagling, fidgeting to get them right underneath your Achilles tendons, the back of your ankles, right there. So your feet are supported. A little bit of fidgeting to get that pillow underneath your head. Just set yourself up here. Good. And then try not to kick those blocks over. Bring one knee at a time, both knees into your chest, and rock those hips away from your shoulders. Feel that side waist, that lower back, that back waistband really spreading out flat on the ground. Stretch one leg out at a time. Ankles lifted, supported on your blocks. Good. It would be too confusing, too complicated to even try putting the belt around the bottom of your foot. So you're going to put a spiritual belt around the bottom of your feet and flex those feet flat. And like you put that spiritual belt around the bottom of your feet, you're going to pull those legs into socket. You're going to shorten your legs. If you have really tight yoga pants, it's like you're pulling on really tight yoga pants lying down in bed, pulling in that tummy as you pull in those Spanx, pull up, hitch up your britches. That's your challenge. And also, legs are narrow, squeezed in. Bring your fingertips behind your head at the base of your skull. Create a little basket with your fingertips for the base of your skull to rest upon. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, breathe into your rib cage. And as you exhale, drop those front ribs. 2 more just like that. Big inhale. Imagine being tickled. And as you exhale, tickle. Activate those tickle muscles. 1 more time. Big inhale. And as you exhale, activate those tickle muscles pulled in. Front ribs are tucked in. Imagine you had suspenders on and somebody started lifting you up by the bra straps, by the suspenders. So you're going to lift yourself up by the bra straps, by the front of the chest, the suspenders, not by the base of your skull, so that you can look down at your tummy. And as you inhale, prepare once again. Exhale, tuck those front ribs, look at your belly, pull that belly in. Pull up on that pelvic floor so that you can look at the tops of your thighs and pull the tops of your thighs into your abs. Feet are flexed flat so you can see your toes. And as you inhale once again, prepare. Exhale, tuck those front ribs in. Lift yourself up by the suspenders, not your head, not your neck. Your head can be heavy in the palms of your hands. Pull those toes back towards your nose. Hopefully you're starting to feel your abs work. To really get those abs work, your challenge, if you choose to accept it, is to inhale and exhale, tuck those abs in. Pull that right leg into socket and hover that right foot 1 inch or 2 off your brick. That's it. We're just going to be here, breathing. Everything squeezing in towards midline, zipping up those inner thighs, pulling in that pelvic floor, shortening your legs, tucking in your front ribs, hitching up those suspenders, pulling on those suspenders, not your head. Head is resting in the palms, fingertips, neck and jaw relaxed. Everything from the throat down engaged. Neck and jaw relaxed. Still hovering this right leg in midair. And set it down. Big inhale. Big exhale. Let's do the other side. Inhale. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. Hitch up your britches. Shorten your legs. Squeeze them together. Flex your feet. Tuck in those front ribs. Pull up on the suspenders. Pull in on your belly. Pull up on your thighs. Pull back on your toes. And your head is heavy in your fingertips. You feel the bottom tips of your shoulder blades still down on the ground. It's not a huge upper body crunch. It's just an activation. You're doing a lot of work, especially when you lift this left leg up just 2 inches off the bricks and pull that left leg into socket. Remember the distance, the hips and ribs doesn't change. Ribs are tucked in. That left hip is hitching up. Abs are engaged, especially on this left side. Head, neck, and jaw relaxed. Work those suspenders. Tuck in the front ribs. Hitch up your britches. Distance between the front of the shoulder and the hip bones getting shorter. And you get to lie down. Big breath. So maybe you haven't worn suspenders in a while, but maybe you've put on a seatbelt. You know, when you sit on the driver's side, it goes across one shoulder to the opposite hip. And then when you sit in the passenger seat, it goes across the other shoulder to the opposite hip. Find right shoulder, left hip, left shoulder, right hip. So opposite diagonal, like you're putting on two seatbelts, and you're going to cinch those seatbelts down tight. And when you pull those seatbelts down tight, you feel your shoulders contract in towards the hip, shoulder in towards the hip. Opposite bandolero across your chest. So let's think about that. Fingertips behind your head, head, shoulders, neck, and jaw relaxed. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs and cinch those seatbelts down nice and tight. Pull in your waistband, squeeze your legs together, looking at your chest, tucking in your front ribs, looking at your belly, pulling your belly in, hitching up those britches, squeeze your legs closed, flex your feet flat, and lift that right leg up. Ooh, let's shorten that distance between right hip and left shoulder a little bit more. Head, neck, and jaw relax. You're lifting your chest, not your head. And hold it tight. In. And release. Big inhale. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. Cinch down on those seat belts. Glancing down your chest, tucking in those front ribs, pulling in your belly, shortening your legs, squeezing your legs close, flexing your feet flat, and hovering that left leg. Distance between left hip and right shoulder gets even tighter. Abs are working. Everything's working. Your neck and jaw relaxed. So from Jandala Harabandha, that throat lock, that feeling at the base of your throat when you exhale, clearing your throat. From that point down, everything working. But from that point up, your neck and jaw, face are relaxed. And release. Let's take a great big stretch. Reach through fingers, reach through toes. Oh, I'm going to kick my bricks out of the way. Hopefully you'll join me. And then take both feet, walk both heels all the way over to the left side, as far to the left side as they'll go. And you can cross that left ankle on top, squeeze your thighs close, flex your feet flat. Take a great big stretch. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. Reach across with your left hand, pull on that right wrist. You'll notice I'm still lying down flat, and hopefully you are too. Going for a big side stretch and a bit of a crunch here. The distance between left hip and left armpit gets shorter. Ooh, can you activate left armpit, left hip, everything in between? Exhale, crunch it. You also squeeze that butt cheek. Go ahead, squeeze your butt. I know it's difficult not to. Exhale, squeeze your butt. Crunch. Feel that big side stretch at the same time. And relax. Walk both heels all the way over to the other side. As far to the right as they'll go. Right ankle's going to cross on top. Feet are going flex flat. Reach across with that right hand and pull on the left wrist. So again, still lying down flat. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, tuck in your front ribs, squeeze your butt. Go ahead, squeeze your thighs together, and then crunch right armpit and right hip tighter, closer to each other. It's activating the one half of your abs here. Right hip, right armpit, crunch in. And you might need to fidget your shoulders to get a deeper crunch here. Right hand is pulling on that left wrist for a big side stretch. Again, I want you to see that I'm still lying down flat. You could put your tea on my tummy and it would not spill. Flat across the front of your hips. Big side stretch. And relax, reset. Let's come all the way on over to hands and knees. We'll do some cat and cow. That's where you might want that padding underneath your knees. Toes curled under. Inhale, head up, tail up, sway back, cow. Oh, that's a nice belly stretch. And as you exhale, pulling your tummy, tuck your tail, arch your back for cat. Inhale, head up, tail up, cow. And exhale, cat. Just going to wave your spine back and forth. Stretching your tummy. And then exhaling, engaging your belly, getting a more dramatic cat. Inhale, head up, tail up, cow. And as you exhale, remember putting on that seatbelt. How about drag right hand and left knee, right hand towards one another, like you're putting on that seatbelt, crunching your abs, pulling in that pelvic floor, squeezing your thighs narrow. And then inhale, head up, tail up, sway back out, let it all hang out. And as you exhale, activate your abs coming into that cat pose. Maybe come up onto fingertips, dragging in that pelvic floor up into your body. And inhale, smooth and steady cow. And once again, exhale like you mean it, squeezing your thighs closed, pulling up on that pelvic floor, tucking in your front ribs, cinching down on those suspenders, putting in that seatbelt nice and tight, activating your abs. And then untuck your toes, back your hips up to your heels. Still in this cat pose variation, you're sitting back over your heels, so it's like a cat child. It's a kitten. Child's pose and a cat mixed together, it's a kitten. All right, hips back on your heels, knees can go wide apart. You're up on your fingertips, up on your kitten claws, and then walk both hands over to one side and breathe. The more you pull in that belly, pull up on that pelvic floor, and sit heavy down on your heels as you side stretch, you're going to feel that lower back, that quadratus lumborum, get a good stretch. And then walk both heels all the way to the other side. So it's not about putting my face on the floor. I'm backing my hips up to my heels. I'm even pushing my fingertips into the ground to back my hips up, pulling in that pelvic floor, tucking in the front ribs, lifting up on that Mula Bandha pelvic floor. Taking my hands as far to the right as they'll go. Big side stretch to happen here. Abs pull in to get that quadratus lumborum, that lower back to stretch. And reset. Oh, let's do that once more on each side. Walking both hands all the way off to one side. Up on fingertips so you can pull your front ribs into your body. And exhaling, growling even on that exhale. Big side stretch. And all the way over to the other side. Second side, second time. It's like a sustained abdominal contraction here. We're doing some abs even as you stretch. That's strength and stretch at the same time. And come back to center. All right, we're going to go through a series of lunges. I got plans for you. So my plans involve you knowing how to use your abs and then something to do with your legs. So I'm going to turn myself sideways, and you might be more comfortable just looking at the screen so you don't have to turn your head all over the place to see what was happening. Stepping forward with your right foot, that means your left knee's down on the pad. I'm going to come into a short lunge. Think right angles. Stacked up here, right angles. So knee over ankle, hip over knee, back foot flat. Help disperse some of that weight down the shin. And it's going to turn up this quadricep stretch because that's what we're going to do. So find the distance between, if this is your right knee in front and your left hip, and try to shorten that distance. Right knee and left hip swing in towards one another. It's like you gotta pee. Hold it in. Okay. Then you're going to turn to look out over that front leg. And again, this is where it's nice if you're looking at the screen so you don't have to turn your head sideways. And get in there with your hand. If this is your right leg, that would be your right hand. Get your belly up on top of that thigh. Work those hips. Good. Both hands on the thigh. Back foot flat down on the ground. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. Pull in that pelvic floor. Do your pelvic thrust tilt. You can even push your hands into your lap to help you pelvic thrust tilt your hip to feel that stretch move down the front of your thigh. And let's turn it up one more notch. Push the top of your left foot down hard into the ground. Left foot pushes down hard into the ground. So you might be getting an ankle stretch out of this, but you're definitely getting a quadricep stretch. And you're breathing. Keep shortening that distance between left hip and right inner knee as you pelvic thrust, as you push your foot down. And imagine lifting your left knee up off the ground, pulling it into socket, if you dare. And relax. Let's spin around, do the other side. Well, I'm going to spin around to do the other side. You might shuffle, switch your legs. All right, so I want you to see in the profile view, I'm stacking hip over knee. I'm not coming down into my lowest lunge. It's just this staggered pose. Foot flat on the ground. You're going to activate and contract that distance between hip and knee, like your washer machine here. And you're going to close the front of your hips. Get in there with your left hand, lift your left hand up and over your belly. You can put your hands on your lap. Going to pull that tummy in. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, tuck those front ribs in, shorten the distance. Right, left, abs pull in. Tight, strong abs. Pushing your foot down flat. Think about lifting that knee up, pulling it into pelvis. Lots of stuff happening here, and it just looks like we're standing around, kneeling. That's why photos are so deceptive. You really can't tell what the person is doing internally just from what's on the external image there. Working hard, pushing that foot down hard, lifting the knee up, closing that distance between right hip and left knee, feeling one heck of a quadricep stretch. And then relax. Whew. Let's go back to that first side. So right foot is forward. Notice I'm picking up that left knee and I'm resetting it down. And as I set it down, I'm trying to get the outer kneecap to touch down first. I'm letting my weight pivot on the ball of the back foot. Yes, I got the back foot picked up. Back heel lifted up. I'm going to swing that knee in narrow, swing the heel out wide. I feel that pinky toe get a stretch. And come up into that kneeling lunge. Pelvic thrust, nice strong abs. And then inch that front foot forward, staying upright. As you pelvic thrust, inch that front foot forward, feeling one heck of a quadricep stretch. And this is where you want that padding underneath the back knee because it can be intense. Get ready, get set. Push back through your heel, activating those abs. Pushing back through the heel as you pull in your front ribs. Activate those abs. Feeling a bit of a toe stretch too. And relax. Let's pivot. Switch sides. Gets faster each and every time. Picking up that back knee, tucking the back knee in, swinging the back heel wide. Got a short stride. Shoulders back and down. Shorten up that distance between the hip and knee. Pelvic thrust. Tucking in those front ribs. Pulling up on the pelvic floor. Maybe pushing back through your heel. Breathing, making it look easy. And release. All right, pivot back to that first side. I'm going to do it now facing you, mirror imaging you. So you got your right knee forward. You're facing the screen. Hopefully this makes sense. Right knee is forward. And you'll see here that I still have a distance, a width between my knees. Shoulders back and down. Back toes can be pointed or curled under. I can't see them from here, so, do whatever you want to do. Try tucking this back knee in narrow. Good. So turned in. Again, I don't know what you're doing with your back foot. It doesn't much matter. You're going to back up for just a moment. Find that balancing point. Inhale, lift up. And as you exhale, pull down on those seat belts. Cinch them in tight. Strap in, get ready for the ride as you lunge forward. And yes, this knee might go past the toe, but you've got your abs pulled in super tight and you're pushing into that back foot hard. And there's not a whole lot of weight on this front knee. It goes past your toe, it's okay. Big pelvic thrust tilt. Now you're working as if you're trying to pick that back knee up off the floor. Picking the back knee up off the floor. Oh, mine's not going anywhere, but yours might. And then back it up. And let's switch sides one more time with this particular lunge out in front. Okay. A little bit of width. I have those zigzag legs you saw earlier. I'm going to take a moment to pick that back knee up, pivot it, set it back down, feel that outer left kneecap touch, outer right kneecap touch down. Again, I can't tell what you're doing to your back foot. Whatever you want to do. Either way works. So I'm shifting back so I can gather up in here. And exhale. Abs are active as you lunge forward. Lots of pelvic thrust to happen here. Pushing down into that back foot. Working as if you're trying to lift that knee up into your hip. Activating those abs. Also shortening the distance between opposite knee and inner knee and opposite hip. Everything working. Seat belts on. Good strong abs. And release. All right. Now let's turn this into a big side stretch. So that was a lot of working. We're going to do another lunge here. It's going to be a big side stretch. I backed up because I'm going to take a longer stride. So we're going to measure out one of your basic lunges now, where you're letting your hips drop down. No longer in that staggered thing. Inching the front foot forward so the knee is directly over the heel. Just in a straight up and down. Okay. Then you get to back it up. Same action. Big inhale all the way up. They're active. Seatbelt in. Everything engaged. Resume the lunge, letting your hips drive forward. That's a big stretch on the front of this hip. If this is your right knee in front, you're going to put your right elbow in your lap, or maybe just your right hand. Sweep that left arm up. Okay. Keep activating those ribs. Seatbelt is turned on. And you're breathing. You're going to back up, hand on your lap, and we're going to add in a side stretch. So inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, activate, resume the lunge, and turn it into a big side stretch. And back it up. I'm going to take this top arm and close the distance between shoulder and opposite knee. Take it diagonal across, reaching down the leg. You can either have ballerina foot or flex the foot. It doesn't matter. Sliding your hand down the outside of your leg. If you are keen to touch your foot, it is more likely you'll be able to touch your toes if your foot is flexed. Big stretch. Head hangs. The more you pull in your tummy, pull up on that pelvic floor, reach down diagonal across, the stronger stretch you'll get. Not only can this be a stretch of the leg, but also you might feel it in your lower back and hip, particularly if you're pulling in that pelvic floor, activating those front ribs. And then release. Let's switch sides. Can you do it without touching the floor with your hands? Try that hands-free shuffle and switch sides. Take a moment, measure out your basic lunge. You might take that back knee, pivot so you feel the outer kneecap touch down. Again, I can't tell what you're doing with the back foot. You do whatever you want with it. So you measured out your basic lunge, then you're going to back up and activate your abs. Inhale. And as you exhale, strap up, buckle up. Let's get into it. Basic lunge. Elbow can come to your lap. Other arm comes on up. And you're breathing. Keep pulling your abs in, activating your abs, doing a crunch. Hard to come by and tickle you. All those muscles are already engaged. And then back up. Inhale. And as you exhale, contract, engage everything, come into that lunge and add in a side stretch. All I wanted to do was add a side stretch. It's not a back bend. You're not throwing your chest open. You're not looking sideways. We'll get there in a moment. Everything is still turned forward. Just turned into a side stretch. This idea of the side ribs, side body, turning in towards midline. You're going to do that as you back up, turn in towards midline, reach down diagonal, down the outside of the leg. And if you have ballerina foot, you can just leave it down. But if you don't have ballerina foot, or if you really want to touch your toes, you're more likely to touch your toes if you rock back on the heel. So taking that arm diagonal across, down the outside of the leg, towards the pinky toe side of the foot. Pulling in your front ribs, pulling in your belly, pulling in your pelvic floor, tucking your tail, tucking your chin, really rounding your back as you reach down. Not only do you get that hamstring stretch, you might also feel a lower back thing happen. And release. All right, let's shuffle switch. Bring your leg out in front. Maybe turn it out to the side a little bit, reaching up. And as you exhale, coming diagonal across, and we were just here a moment ago. Oh, if you have a block, you might need a block underneath the left hand. If your left hand's not quite long enough to reach the floor, you might need this would be your right hand, a block underneath your right hand. So this right hand is touching the floor or the block. It's on something. This left one went diagonal across. And maybe you're looking up to see what's happening, because that's what I want you to do. Look up for the following. But exhale is all the same action you were just doing with your abs. So doing that cinching thing with the seat belts, pulling in that pelvic floor, activating your abs, throwing out your breath, but you're keeping your head up, because your challenge will be to lift up and maybe come up. I do recommend holding onto the floor the whole time. You're just playing around with floating, holding the leg into socket. Does that help you float a little better? And I don't know what you're doing with the back foot. It can be tucked under, thrown or pointed, it doesn't matter. Just playing around with a second of balance. And then bring it down. And let's switch sides. Have a block ready to go, just in case. So that zigzag stacked legs, so that you can activate your abs. And as you exhale, come diagonal across, rocking back, grabbing hold of pinky toe side of the leg or foot. Left hand down on the ground, on a block or the floor, whatever you need there. Think about activating your abs, pulling in on that pelvic floor, tucking your tail, tucking your chin, but keeping your head up. So you're going to eventually try to lift up. But think about lifting from the inside, pulling everything in, activating all those ab muscles that we've been working on for the last half hour, turning all that stuff on. So maybe you can lift the leg up. Maybe it just kind of floats up after you turn all that stuff on. And play around with a moment of balance. It is easier the harder the ground underneath your knee, but the harder the ground underneath your knee, the harder the ground underneath your knee. So do know that if you're on a pillow, it's a little bit more challenging. And then come on down. Hello, hips. Let's go ahead and stand up, step wide, come into that wide-legged forward fold. I don't know about you, but I feel like stretching out those hips a little bit more. Starting to find all kinds of interesting muscles this morning. So feet go nice and wide, toes in, heels out. Find yourself in a nice wide-legged forward fold. And breathe. Hands touch the floor or they touch blocks. Hands touch something so that you can settle in. Let your head hang. Unlock your knees. Toes are in. Lift up and flare your pinky toes. Toes turned in, but your pinky toes lift up and flare. You're going to press back and wide through your heels. Try stretching that mat between your feet, spreading your heels without your feet actually going anywhere, pressing your heels wide, keeping your knees unlocked. Feel those sit bones blossom like a flower. Head is hanging, melting into this pose, letting shoulders sag down towards your ears, your side ribs separating from your hips. And you might wiggle a little bit. Maybe start to creep your hands forward, coming up onto those fingertips, letting your head hang, but lifting your armpits up away from the ground as you creep those fingers even further forward, all the while keeping your hips parked back in line with your heels, as if your hips and heels were flat up against a wall. Hips are backed up over your heels. Knees are unlocked, pinky toes are lifted, heels are spreading wide. Oh, keep those legs working even when you think about creeping those fingers further forward. And breathing. Nice deep side body lengthening happening here. All right. And then creep those hands back underneath your shoulders. And lift your head up enough to find your blocks. Find your block. And you only need one block for this one. Feet are nice and wide, toes in, heels out. And you've lifted your head up to see what I was doing. So that's where I want you to leave your head. Keep your head up, fingertips on your blocks. Hips are still back as if your hips and heels were flat up against the wall. Knees are unlocked so your butt can stick out, so that you can put your sit bones and your heel bones against an imaginary wall. Knees are bent so you can put your sit bones and heel bones on an imaginary wall. Head is still up. Toes turned in, heels turned out, pinky toes flare. Knees unlocked. Inhale. And as you exhale, pull in those abs, tuck in your front ribs. There's really no good place for your head, so you might as well leave your head up, glancing forward, lifting those front ribs and belly harder, stronger into your body. So you can continue to glance up and see what's happening. Knees unlocked, sit bones back. Abs are lifting. You're coming up even higher. Maybe that brick moves in closer to you as you come up even higher. And as you exhale, pull in that pelvic floor, maybe bring that brick in a little bit closer, tuck in your front ribs. Knees are unlocked. Maybe bring that brick in a little bit closer, tuck in your knees, pull in that pelvic floor, keep spreading those heels. I know that's weird. Toes in, heels out. And activating, pulling in those ribs. And then you'll find a point where your hands start to float. Keep moving slowly, activating those abs, pulling up that pelvic floor, slowly rolling all the way up to standing. Your arms are just dangling here. You've got really tight seat belts and they're slowly loosening as you are unrolling, coming all the way up to standing. Good morning. Nice. Big inhale all the way up. And exhale. Palms forward. Turn those thumbs in. Your hands like alongside your face. Thumbs back. Elbows forward. Shoulders down. Chest lifted. Let's turn those feet out. You have your heels wider than your elbows. Hopefully you have your heels wider, or at least as wide as your elbows. Inhale. Shoulders down, thumbs back, elbows forward. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, pull in those front ribs, pull in that pelvic floor. Let your knees bend as you slide down that wall. Good. Knees are wide, shoulders down, thumbs back. Front ribs and belly pulled in as you slide down that wall a little bit more. Knees nice and wide. And inhale up. And as you exhale, pull down on those seatbelts, strap in, thumbs back, elbows forward. If you were a multi-armed god or goddess and you had an extra set of hands cinching down on those abs, as you actually keep your shoulders down, chest lifted, sit down a little bit more. And inhale up. One more time. As you exhale, strap in and activate those abs. Lift up on that pelvic floor, even as you let your knees go wide, even as you shift your weight back towards your heels. Thumbs back, elbows forward. Front ribs are tucked in. Chest lifted. Back sliding down that wall. And inhale up. Swan dive down. Find both blocks. Let your feet do whatever they want to do. You're going to walk both hands over to one side. You're going to keep that nice wide stride between your feet. This one's called Skandasana, or variation on Skandasana. This heel may or may not be floating. This foot does whatever it wants to do, getting a nice strong inner thigh stretch. I am using blocks here. My arms aren't quite as long as they have to be for me to put my hands down flat. I want my shoulders down away from the ears, chest open. Using your abdominals, but keeping your shoulders back and head lifted. So all of this is engaged. Shift over to the other side. Trying to keep your chest up, upper chest up, lower chest in. Breathing. So abs pulled in, pelvic floor pulled in, switching sides. You might find if you're using your abs, pulling up, keeping your shoulders down, chest lifted, fingertips can be on blocks. Your arms go directly underneath your shoulders. You might find that you get a little bit lighter as you switch sides. So you're getting that nice inner thigh stretch again. I don't care what you're doing with your foot, as long as you're feeling a good stretch. In fact, trying a slightly different angle with that foot might hit that stretch a little bit differently on those different muscle fibers. Abs pulled in, pelvic floor lifted, coming to the other side. And up and over. All right. This can be quite bony on your heels. And one more time. Switch. Now let's take this foot. You're going to pivot the big toe down. I've pulled my big toe in. I'm going to catch the floor with the edge of the big toe, and then I'm going to pivot over that big toe, push back through the heel. I get a bit of a toe stretch as I do this. Now everything is twisting over here as I take the opposite diagonal shoulder towards knee, hip towards knee, Pull it all the way around, doing my crunch, pulling everything in. Fingertips to the floor or block, and then pivot to look behind. Big stretch. You're pulling in that pelvic floor, activating your abs. Maybe getting a little bit lighter, maybe lifting up higher off the ground as you contract that pelvic floor. Activate those abs. Lift that back leg up even higher. And unwind. Pivot all the way around to the other side. Picking up that back heel. Pivoting on the ball of the toe. Opposite diagonal crunch, diagonal across. Getting belly up over past the thigh. Coming into that big rotated twisted lunge. Squeezing that pelvic floor and pulling up. Or cinching down on those seatbelts. Abs are strong. Big twist. Shoulders down your back. And release. Pivot all the way around, going back to that first side. Contracting, getting your belly up and over that thigh. Going for that big twist. Squeezing your thighs closed in the back. Like you gotta pee. Chest is open. Shoulders down, away from your ears. Chin is tucked. Breathing. And unwind. All the way around. Pivot on the ball of the back foot. You're gonna roll over that toe. Contract, twist, adjust, work the pose. Breathe. Bringing shoulder to knee, hip to knee, twisting hard. Doing your abs to twist. And then check this out. I'm going to take that back knee, start to lower it down towards the floor. Rock back on the heel. Still reaching diagonal across. Oh, you can find that pinky toe. Abs are still pulled in. Maybe you need to find that block wherever it got off to. We're going to give it another shot here. Pulling that leg into socket, activating your abs. So it's pulling in, crunching across, tucking in those front ribs, shrugging those shoulders down. Playing around with balance. Back toes can be curled under or pointed, whatever works for you. Whatever works for you. Just playing with it. And then unwind. Go all the way around to the other side. Twist it all the way around to the other side. So got that block there. Reaching, belly up, across, diagonal over. Coming into that twist. Working the pose, lifting that back knee up for just a moment. Giving yourself a good, strong twist. So activating those abs. That belly is pulled in. That pelvic floor is pulled in. Big twist. Shoulders relaxed. Feeling some fantastic stuff happening in your lower back and hips. And then you get to set that knee down. Rock back. Maybe bringing a hand to a block. Reaching diagonal across. Maybe it'll work on this side. Take your time. Strap in. Activate all that core stuff first. Play around with balancing. For me, at least, one side does work better than the other. That leg is pulled in. It is short. That pelvic floor is engaged. Playing around with balance. And set it down. Try not to shatter your heel. All right, you get to spin on out of this one, coming into that wide-legged forward fold. And breathe. Head down. Toes in, heels down. Nice wide-legged forward fold. Cross-feet to Padottanasana. You have the option. Keep your knees bent. You have the option to keep your heels wide. Keep on breathing as you clasp your hands together behind your back. Pressing your knuckles up, squeezing your shoulder blades together. Breathing. You might play around with shrugging, unshrugging, rolling your shoulders. That's a weird one, huh? Can you roll one shoulder forward, one shoulder back? If you're just knocking yourself over here, you can by all means put your hands down on the ground. But if you can, keep your hands clasped together and play around with moving your shoulders. That could be entertaining. I'll pass some time here in this wide-legged forward fold. And then hands come to your hips. Hands slide all the way down to the floor. Then you're going to step back into your downward facing dog. Let your head hang, shake out your hair, wiggle your jaw. Maybe even yawn. Separate your feet as wide apart as your mat. Put a bend in your knees, back your hips up. So bend your knees, back your hips up in line with your heels, spiritually. Bend your knees, back your hips up, back them up. And then play around shrugging your shoulders. You're going to have to unlock your elbows so that you can shrug your shoulders. Everything still back up. Knees bent, hips back, heels lifted, head hanging, elbows have to unlock so that you shrug your shoulders around. And then lift your head up and swing those elbows in narrow. Look up. Swing those elbows in narrow. Maybe turn your fingers out. Swing your elbows in narrow. Look up. Set your knees down. Let your back arch. Chin up, tail up. And as you exhale, let those shoulders shrug up around your ears. Inhale, head up, tail up. Shoulders shrug away from your ears. Turn your hands out. You can give me 2 thumbs up. Let those armpits wrap around in towards your chest. So as you give me 2 thumbs up, feel the outer rim of your armpits wrap around towards your chest. And as you exhale, round. Again, inhale. Wrap those armpits around towards your chest. So as I swung those elbows wide, I pivoted. Give you 2 thumbs up. Elbows in narrow. Chest moves forward. Nice sway back. Shoulders away from your ears. Nice long neck. You tuck your head side to side a few times. Just for fun. And exhale, around your back, come into that cat pose. From this cat pose, turn your toes under. Inhale. Exhale, activate those abs. Wrap those armpits around towards your chest. Chin is tucked to your chest. Pelvic floor pulls in. Thighs squeeze closed. You're doing a great big dramatic cat. And then you lift your knees up and you back your hips up into your dog pose. Inhale. As you exhale, tuck in those front ribs. Strap on. Activate those abs as you shift forward. It's like you're cinching down those seatbelts. You're squeezing your legs closed. And then as you shift forward and you get your chest out over your thumbs, roll your shoulders onto your back. Swing those elbows in narrow like you're guarding your armpits. You can swing out towards your pinky fingers. If you could pick your thumbs up, you would give me 2 thumbs up right now. You hold your plank. And then you get to set your knees down and back it up, child's pose. Let's come on up to kneeling. Now you might want to kneel on some padding because you have the option of having your toes pointed, which disperses weight down your shins, which takes some of the pressure off your knees, or curled under. Makes it bonier on the knees, but with your toes curled under, your legs are a little bit more engaged. Either way is fine. You can have toes curled under. In that case, you'll be pushing back through your heels, like something we did earlier. If you have your toes pointed, you're going to be pushing down through the tops of your feet, just like we did at the beginning of class. So I don't care what you do with your feet. Just pick something, commit to it, and work it. I'm going to go here. Get those knees in narrow for the outer rim of the kneecaps, touch in. Legs are narrow. Heels out if you got your toes curled under. If you have your toes pointed, you're going to push down into the pinky toes. So your heels are flaring out to the sides. Those inner knees are narrow. Outer knees are tucked in. Hands come to your hips. Inhale, big breath. And as you exhale, tuck those ribs. Hey, we've been here before. Big inhale. And as you exhale, tuck those ribs. 2 more just like that. Big inhale. And exhale. 1 more. Do it for the children. Inhale up. And exhale. Keep those ribs tucked in. You're going to back your hips up for just a split second. And keep those ribs tucked in as you inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, pelvic thrust and work those feet, either pushing down or pushing back, as the case may be for your feet. Strong pelvic thrust, tilt. Hands come to your hips, inhale. And as you exhale, tuck those front ribs in, but then free your shoulders to shrug up, back, and together. Still front ribs are tucked in. Your shoulders are free to shrug onto your back, and then you can spin your fingers to point down. Hands at the top of your butt, lengthening your lower back as you let your upper heart open, squeezing shoulder blades together. Abs are still working here, doing a strong pelvic thrust tilt. Trying to strap on that seatbelt as your hips come forward. Keep contracting those front ribs. Keep them in, even as you thrust your hips further forward. Hands can be pushing your hips forward, shoulder blades squeezing together. Eventually, you're going to want to roll your head back and just breathe. Keep pushing your feet, working those legs. And then roll all the way around. Woo. Child's pose. Child's pose. From this child's pose, find your bricks. You only need 1, maybe 2. So you have 1 out in front, 1 for sure behind you. This happens to be my left arm. I'm going to take this left shoulder and hitchhike that left shoulder onto my back so that I have power to push down into this left hand. Right hand, I'm going to find that zipper pull. I'm going to pull up on the pelvic floor. I'm going to tuck in those front ribs. I'm going to activate all my core musculature as I drag that hand up the front of my body. Again, getting to the base of the throat, then the shoulders can drop and the head falls back. So shoulders, everything crunched in as you drag that hand up the front of your body. And then when you get to your throat, then you can let those shoulders shrug back and your head fall back. That's an extra detail. I know you might get lost along the way, but that's okay. Just breathe. Inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, strap in. Inhale, lifting up. Inhale, 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 inhale. Get to your throat. Drop those shoulders. Let your head roll back and continue into a beautiful side stretch. Now this bottom hand is pushing down into the block. So I can still activate those abs. Breathing. Strong pelvic thrust. And then come on down. So it's a crunch all the way until you get to the front of your throat. And then the shoulders drop. Switching sides. All right, inhale, prepare. And as you exhale, inhale all that power. Core musculature, everything engaged. And then inhale, pelvic thrust forward. Inhale, inhale, up. Let those shoulders drop, chest open. Big side stretch. And back bend. All in one. I'm still working my abs here. If you come by and tickle me, I'm guarding against that. Even as I'm getting this big side stretch. Half camel. And then come on down. It's so good. Let's do it one more time. Do this. My back to you. Again, I don't care what you do with your feet as long as you are working those feet. I'm starting back here. Inhale. Exhale. Lots of abs. Pelvic thrust. And inhale begins. Opening, getting those shoulders down. Head falls back. Yeah, you can squeeze your butt. It's okay. Keep breathing. want you to work those feet a little bit more though. The more you work those feet, maybe you can let go of your butt. Yeah. You push those feet and let go of your butt. And then come on down. Other side, putting it all together. Camel is one of the most challenging yoga poses there is. Abs engaged. And because it looks like a back bend, people throw themselves into it. It is more of an ab thing if you're truly doing yoga. It's a big ab contraction. Work those feet. Roll in that pelvic floor. Tuck in your front ribs as you let your shoulders shrug down your back. Chest is open. Throat is open. And all on down. All right. Time flies when you're having fun. And hopefully you got really well stretched out and worked. And if you're thinking about your tummy hurting day after tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, that's from this class, abs. All right, you get to lie down. Take your feet as wide apart as your mat. And those knees tick-tock side to side like windshield wipers. You're just going to self-soothe, tick-tock side to side, making nice with your lower back. Feeling that lovely stretch through your abs. You want even more stretch, you take your arms overhead, ballerina style. If you find that you're traveling around on your mat, think about taking the floating hip, whichever one is lifting away from the ground, and hiking that hip up towards the corresponding shoulder. So if it's your right hip floating, you hike your right hip up towards your right armpit before you set it back down. Maybe I could slow that down for you. Whichever hip is floating, you're going to take it, hike it up towards the armpit before you set it down. Take that floating hip, hike it up before you set it down. And that will keep you from crawling down your mat. It's also one little last ab thing if you're into that kind of thing. It does kind of do something special for that lower back too. You can get those abs working, hip hiking. And when that lower back, hips and everything are nice and happy, and you want to settle in, you might go for that butterfly pose, Supta Baddha Konasana, or any other variation that tickles your fancy this morning. If you are going for butterfly pose, you might consider putting blocks underneath your knees, since you have a comfortable stretch, but nothing so intense that it's distracting. So prop those knees up and do put them underneath the same height or on top of the same height. So matching heights with the blocks. And settle in the final relaxation. Begin to wiggle your fingers and toes, wiggle your jaw, wiggle your nose. Stretching, moving, yawning. And eventually making your way on over